What's up, ladies and gents? You know what time of day it is. It's Zebec time, and in today's video we're going to be talking all about Zebec. We're going to be discussing what we are seeing here on the charts, and I'll be giving you guys my price prediction for Zebec over the coming days and weeks, as well as my targets for 2025. So be sure to stay tuned for all of that. Of course, if you are a new viewer, then welcome to this channel. If you do like this sort of content, hit the like button and subscribe for more. If you are a returning viewer, as always, welcome back to the channel. It's great to have you all here. And of course, here for Zebec, we're going to start off with the shorter term. We are on the 1 hour chart right now, and this is the picture that we have here on the screen. Now, of course, since our last video, we have seen quite a drop here in the Zebec price. We saw a low down there of 0.0023. And from that level, this little bounce that we saw on the 1 hour chart is actually quite significant. Let me take you guys to the 1 day chart, and this is what it looks like right now. Of course, if you see my previous videos, essentially we were watching two major trend lines here on Zebec, and we had our support that basically looked a little bit like this, and we also had a resistance that looked like this. Now, of course, from that price action that we saw yesterday, we can see that the prices actually went right below our support line. But then on the very same day, we saw the prices manage to reclaim that support once again. So essentially, we saw the prices drop down below the support and went back up in the same day. So that's actually quite a good sign with respect to the support. Of course, if the prices stayed below the support for too long, then of course it would invalidate this pattern. But for now, it looks like we could still be seeing this. Now, of course, if we are still seeing this, guys, this is good news, because this on the screen is a falling wedge pattern, and we know it's a falling wedge pattern because we've got two trend lines heading in the downwards direction, converging into each other, and that just means that if we extend them out, they eventually meet. And of course, this falling wedge pattern is a bullish chart pattern. So if at any point we see a breakout to the upside, let's say that happens in a few days, where prices start to inch above this upper resistance line, then we could be looking at a decent price target here for Zebec in the shorter term. Now, of course, the price target is just a distance between the support to the resistance. We drag that to wherever we see a breakout. So let's just say Let's just say it happens within the next few days. You can see that the price target stemming from this falling wedge sits at 0.0051. So essentially a 76% upside from wherever we break out. So of course, we've got this falling wedge in the shorter term that's still in play, in my opinion. Of course, what happens over the next few days, I think, will be influenced by some of the news that is coming out. I want to talk briefly about that. And if you guys remember from a few months ago, this word popped up a lot, the tariffs. And of course, in April the 2nd, if you guys remember, Trump set a bunch of really high tariffs for a lot of different countries. But after he announced those, he initiated a 90-day pause. Now, of course, right now we are really close to that 90-day deadline. In fact, that deadline is on July the 9th. There has been talks that this deadline has been extended until August the 1st, but there is also talks that actually, on August the 1st, we are going to see the higher tariff rates implemented on all the countries that haven't made a deal. And so far, the only countries that have made a deal with the USA is the UK, Vietnam, and partially China as well. So there hasn't been many countries making a tariff deal with the USA. And if we don't see more countries making deals with the USA by August the 1st, we could potentially see those higher tariff rates implemented on those countries that haven't made a deal. Now, if you guys need a reminder as to what happened when we saw the tariff news, let me just go on the stock market. This basically was the reaction from the market. Of course, we saw a massive sharp drop, but we also saw a massive sharp recovery as well. So basically, leading up to this tariff news, at least to July the 9th, where we get a little bit more clarity on the situation, I do expect there to be a little bit of de-risking in the market. So maybe we see the prices drop a little bit further before we see some good news here on Zebec. On top of that as well, what we also have is a speech by the Fed chair that's happening also on July the 9th. And of course, it's going to be his opinion on how the economy is doing, Has there been any improvement on previous concerns that he's had with regards to inflation, the tariffs, etc.? If there is some improvement in his opinion and he's ready to cut the rates a little bit sooner, that could be very, very bullish for the market. So this could also be a very positive thing if we see this turn out to be good. That's obviously 7 p.m. on Wednesday, July the 9th. So just watch out for that. But at the same time as well, if something bad is said in there, we could see a sell-off here on Zebec as well. So two big things to look out for: the tariff deadline and that Fed minutes that's coming out on July the 9th. So of course, here for Zebec, if we do see a bit of a drop, what I would be looking for in terms of potential places where we could see a strong support is within this region here on Zebec. So of course, as you can see, the prices have come up to this zone of resistance on lots of different occasions. We've seen it used as a strong resistance here from Zebec back in 2024 and 2025. So essentially, if the prices do continue to drop, I would expect there to be a strong support for Zebec at 0.0021. However, I'm also seeing quite a lot of things here on Zebec that could tell us that we could be going up in the shorter term as well. So over the coming days and weeks. And the first thing that we notice here on Zebec, if we go on a really short time frame and we add the MACD, you guys, if you see my previous videos, will know about this, but basically we've been watching these bullish divergences, and these divergences just come about when you connect the lows here on the MACD and connect the lows on the price. And essentially, if they're facing in opposite directions, which as you can see that they are, then this is a hidden divergence, a hidden bullish divergence, and this could tell us that we could see a new bullish trend emerge in the near future. Now, despite the fact that prices did this dump all the way down to 0.0023 here on Zebec, we've barely seen the MACD on the 1 hour chart move in the downwards direction. So if you compare that to the MACD at the start of June there, when we saw that initial sell-off, then we are still seeing this mega bullish divergence here between the MACD and the price. So that is something very bullish in my opinion, and we see that on multiple timeframes as well. On the 4 hour charts, again, despite that selling action that we saw over the past few days, we can still see that the MACD is showing us a bullish trend when we connect the lows of the MACD. And here on the price, needless to say, it has been going down, so we've got this bullish divergence once again. Now, the final boss really for Zebec comes when we see a crossover here on the 1 day MACD. At the moment, the 1 day MACD is looking a little bit bearish because, as you can see, we've got red bars indicating bearish momentum. But at some point, sooner rather than later, I do expect there to be a crossover of the two lines and a potential green bars like what we saw back in May emerging here on the MACD. Of course, if that happens alongside a breakout of this falling wedge, that would be extremely bullish, and I do think that would give Zebec the power to head back to previous all-time highs. So of course, the final boss is here on the 1 day MACD. Very finally as well, in terms of what we're seeing here on the chart, we haven't yet spoken about this, but this blue line is the 200-day moving average here on Zebec. And essentially, this 200-day moving average is something that dictates the very long-term trend. If the prices remain above this 200-day moving average, this blue line, then we are in a very long-term bullish trend. If we are below, we are generally bearish. And when we are in this very long-term bullish trend, the prices like to use this 200-day moving average as a place of support. So over the past day, we have seen the prices come to test this blue line as a support. And so if this 200-day moving average holds, then this should be pretty good for Zebec, because it means that we shouldn't have that much room to the downside before we start seeing a new bullish trend emerge. So essentially, this blue line should be our support here for the Zebec price, and it currently sits at 0.0023. So very limited downside if this 200-day moving average holds. Let me just show you guys what it looks like here on Bitcoin as well. Of course, Bitcoin has been in an uptrend since 2022. This is the 200-day moving average on Bitcoin. As you can see, prices here on Bitcoin come down to test this moving average on regular different occasions. We can see that this has been very significant here for Bitcoin as a place of support during its mega uptrend since 2022. So that's the kind of significance that the 200-day moving average has here for Zebec. So we are close to this line. It'll be interesting to see if this can hold. Now, for the longer term, here on Zebec, we obviously have this falling wedge. That is more of a shorter term pattern. This is something that could happen within days and weeks. But if we are talking for the rest of 2025, then I am still extremely optimistic here for Zebec. I still think that Zebec could reach some very high price targets. Of course, based on the chart, we use these fib levels to predict where the Zebec price can go, and we use these fib levels because essentially we know that Zebec uses them as places of support and resistance. For example, the 0.5 fib has been tested on 3 separate occasions during this accumulation period that we have had. As you can see, when prices went up to their all-time high, we tested the 1.414 fib, essentially had it used as a resistance, and now actually the prices have come down to this 0.786 fib, and at the moment we are using that as a support. So Zebec, as you can see, really likes these fib levels. And so essentially, when Zebec gets back up to previous all-time highs, so past this 0.007 mark, then the next natural target here for Zebec is 0.0093. That's an important fib here, 1.618. I do think that could be a shorter term target as well if we see a breakout from that falling wedge and we continue bullish momentum into new all-time highs, then we could see something a little bit like this. However, in 2025, my main target for Zebec lies at this extended 2.618 fib, and that gives Zebec a target here of 0.046. Now, if we can bust past that target, the next natural target for Zebec is 0.1, and that's basically the same as saying 100,000 Bitcoin. It's going to be a big psychological level because it's a large round number, and I do think there could be quite a bit of selling pressure if the prices can get up this high. So these two targets here are my main ones, 0.1 and 0.046. Now, of course, for the best possible chance to get to those targets, what we need to see ideally are favorable values from these two indicators on the CoinMarketCap homepage. So if you just go on the homepage, it should look something like this. Of course, what you see here is the Fiat and Greed Index and the Altcoin Season Index. Now, for the Altcoin Season Index, we want to see this value at least 75. For the Fiat and Greed Index, we want to see this value at least 80. And basically, the higher the values for both of these, the better. Now, of course, the Altcoin Season Index just basically shows us how our altcoins are performing against Bitcoin. As this number increases, altcoins are outperforming Bitcoin more and more. So essentially, a high number for this means that altcoins in general are clearly outperforming Bitcoin. Of course, for this one, this is a sentiment indicator. So it shows what kind of emotions there are in the market. At the moment, everything is looking neutral. But when we see this value at above 80, we see extreme greed in the market, we see euphoria. And when we get these two combined, we generally tend to see frenzies that allow small cap cryptos like Zebec to do these 2x's, 5x's, 10x's, even 100x's in the shortest space of time. And that's the kind of environment that we need to see if we're going to have the best possible chance of reaching these upper price targets. So of course, that is pretty much what I wanted to say for this video in a nutshell. Remember guys, don't forget, if you want to get $10 completely free to buy some Zebec, then don't forget to check out the MEX exchange. As you can see on the screen, they're giving every new user who signs up using the link in the description down below $10 to get started. Remember, this exchange does not require KYC. All you need to do to claim that $10 is deposit some fiat currency or crypto into your MEX account, and then you'll receive that bonus straight away. So like I say, you can simply buy some Zebec with it, or you can use their futures to long Zebec with up to 20 times leverage. Of course, guys, thank you so much for your support on this channel. I really do appreciate you all. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next video.